I think people think it's all fun and games. They're like, oh, you just play games all day. How fun. And it's like, yes, I do get to play a lot of games, and that is incredible. And I love it. But it's a job like any other in terms of you have to be hustling and working hard all of the time. You definitely have to like people and you have to be decent at reading them, because a lot of this job is ultimately caring for people and crafting an experience for people in a way that they're going to really enjoy.
Welcome to the Job Dictionary podcast. Today, I'll be interviewing Juliana Moreno as a game designer or a creator of fun. Thank you so much for joining us today. A
Thanks for
couple
having me.
quick questions to start us off with. In your own words, what do you do?
So, yes, my official job title is a creator of fun. I am always looking at our company mantra is new ways to play. So we are looking at where can we put in games and interactions and bring more fun into the world in all different ways.
That's awesome. Where are you located at?
Los Angeles, California.
And when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, my original plan was to be an actress, and then that morphed into writer, and then that morphed into game designer.
There you go. Look at that pipeline. And then how long have you been working as a creator of fun?
8 years now.
Wow. And then what kind of like how did you get into this field and how did you get your start?
So we got our start. I do this with my co-creator of fun, Ariel Rubin, my business partner. We got our start back in 2016 with a Kickstarter because we loved playing escape rooms and we loved playing tabletop games at home, like having game nights. And there was nothing that brought the two of them together. So now there's like a million at-home escape room games on the market, but we were the very first one to market with Escape Room in a Box, The Werewolf Experiment.
Oh wow.
And with the Kickstarter, that just blew up. We ended up licensing that game to Mattel, and it opened all sorts of doors for us to create games in all sorts of different places.
How many games do you think you've created since starting?
Oh my gosh. Well, I can tell you we have 9 published tabletop games because that's like an easy,
Right.
boxes on my shelves. But we've done so many other projects. It's probably like 70, 80 at this
Wow.
point.
How long does it normally take for you to like get a game going from like concept in your head to like actually doing it?
It really depends on the project. So I think the absolute fastest game that we ever created was called Vampire.Pizza. And this was in the early days of COVID, like when we were first locked
Right.
down. And we had been in talks with someone about working on a project, in real life. And they were like, what if instead a vampire delivers a pizza to you? Because everyone's stuck at home and there's a game that comes with the pizza. So we made this
Ooh.
whole narrative where you're joining the vampire revolution. But because of that timeline, like we didn't know how long we were going to be at home for. We thought
Right.
it was supposed to be so quick. So we literally designed and tested that game within 10 days. So that is the absolute
Wow.
fastest one that we ever put out in the world. And then, there are projects that we have worked on for years that are still not complete. So it really runs the gamut depending on what the project is.
That's super interesting. 10 days, that I don't know how
That
you
was
get any
crazy.
faster
I would
than that.
say, yeah, like a normal standard timeline for a full-size game is more like 6 months between
Okay.
concept, design, and then iterating and testing. We always want to have a lot of time for testing the game before it goes out to the world.
And then kind of veering off, what did you study in college?
So I studied theater, and my co-creator was also a theater major. So I think, that sense of drama, that sense of how
Right.
to entertain people and, story, how do you really tell a good story, has come in very useful.
Do you write a lot too, I'm guessing?
So there's a lot of writing in game design, honestly. So much of what we do is story and scripting. So writing scripts for performers who are going to
Right.
be facilitating people through a lot of our games are live in-person games. So there's cast members who work with you through the game. So it's saying, okay, and here's kind of what you'll say if they say this sort of thing. And then if they say this to you, here's what you'll say. And then a lot of just writing for all of the different materials that people encounter in the game. So yes, I do a ton of writing, but it is all game focused writing. I don't do any script writing anymore.
And then are there any certain degrees or certifications you need to be a game designer?
Not officially, no. A lot of people, it's interesting. So we kind of straddled the tabletop toy world of like products that you would buy at Target or Walmart, and then also the immersive entertainment world. So in the tabletop and game world, a lot of people have actual product design
Mhm.
background. And then you can now get game design degrees as well. And then in the more interactive space, a lot of people actually have theater degrees. This is where all the theater majors went, with like immersive entertainment
Right.
and themed entertainment. But there's absolutely no requirements, and by far the best thing that you can come to the table with is just a lot of experience in having gone to and seen and played a lot of these things. That's the best teacher by far.
What kind of game is like your favorite to play?
Ah, that's it's
A
like, which
loaded
of your
question.
children is your favorite child? Um, I I love so many types of games. I absolutely love like puzzle solving mystery games, obviously. I very much love party games. I very much love kind of interactive open world games. So I have a lot of favorites.
Super cool. What are the specific tasks you spend the majority of your day doing?
It's really varied, and I actually love that about my job. So, like, literally, I'll tell you this morning what I'm doing is
Okay.
I am creating a physical prototype for a test that's happening tomorrow of an experience at a historical site that we're working on in Turks and Caicos. So, I'm like
Wow.
transforming my house into an old historic prison on
Wow.
Turks and Caicos. So I'm like literally with an X-Acto knife, like creating the prototypes of the pieces that they're going to
Wow.
find there. So that's one part of what I'm doing. Then I'm also reviewing a contract for a new job that we have coming in, which a lot of the things that we do, fortunately, are with huge corporations, but it means they send giant, very long and very detailed and extensive contracts. So need to go through that contract and make sure everything is good to go there. And then we got in a bunch of decks because we are consulting on an immersive experience that's going to be happening at a museum, and just consulting and giving them advice on how to make it better and more interactive. So I have to review all of the creative for everything that they currently have. And then I also need to be creating new puzzles for a new experience that we have opening this summer. So it's a wide variety of like ideation and then physical creation and then also logistic, legal,
Right.
nitty gritty. And I love it that way. I love the fact that I can kind of bounce back and forth between all the different things and not have to be doing different thing or not have to be doing the same thing over and over and over again.
So always super diverse days. It just depends what's like thrown on your desk.
Yes, I mean our the way that we normally operate, and I like it this way, is we normally have 4 to 5 projects going at once. And so they'll generally be in all different stages. And
Right.
so it's about doing, the next thing for each of the projects to make sure we're hitting all the deadlines.
What are the different like stages that you have for each game?
Sure. The first stage is always going to be pretty much all of our work is client based. So the first stage is understanding the client's needs and wants. So what is it that they already have existing? What have they
Right.
done in the past? What has worked? What hasn't worked? And what creative do they have now that they definitely want to use? So understanding essentially the limitations of the project, like what are the needs of the project? What are the limitations? What's the budget? What's the space? All of that. Once we have that, a good understanding of all of that, the next stage is the concepting and ideation. So that's where my business partner and I, we do a lot of work separately, but the initial concept and the initial ideation we do always do together and figure out what is the story. We start with the story. What's the story that we're trying to tell in this experience? Who are the characters? How are we going to encounter those characters? And what is the journey that the player is going to go on? So once we have like a broad understanding of that, we'll start to really kind of narrow into the beat by beat of, okay, this is how it's going to start.
Right.
This is what the next thing is. This is the next thing. This is the next thing. So what is happening kind of at every small moment through the course of the game. And then once we have that, it is, and there's obviously like client reviews at every step. Once we have that, create the actual physical prototype that is going to be some version of the experience. And like I said, it's often a cardboard paper version of
Right.
what will be a true physical, incredible space. Um, but something that is like the bare playable product that we can have people go through. So create that and then start testing, test and test and test. That is such an important part of game design that I think never gets enough credit. People are always like,
Right.
oh yeah, we'll test it for like a day or two. And it's like, no, this is where you really see how do you make it fun for different groups of people who are in
Right.
different mindsets, different ages, different skill levels. So a lot of testing and changing and iterating all throughout that. Once we have that in a really good place, we will generally hand it over. Sometimes we oversee all the fabrication, but in our ideal world, we hand it over to the people who are fabricating and installing and putting it all in. And then once it has been put in, come back and do more testing with that
Right.
final install of everything and see like, okay, well, can we at least like change the voiceover or change the text, like changing the little things at that point to make sure that it's all running smoothly.
Super cool. And you kind of already hit on this, but what would you say the parts of your job that are most exciting or interesting?
I think for me, it's kind of twofold. Like one, that initial ideation and concepting phase, I love, where it's just blue sky. You can kind of come up with whatever it is that you want to come up with. I have a great creative partnership with Ariel, and I love the way that we build ideas
Mhm.
off of each other. So that like initial rush of what is this going to be is super fun. And then also, I think when you're getting through the play testing, generally more towards the end, but sometimes if you're lucky in the beginning, getting to actually see people go through and have a really positive
Right.
experience and seeing their eyes light up and seeing them be like, oh my gosh, like, whoa, I didn't see that. Like seeing the joy that our players feel is the other like big rush of being a game designer.
Cool. And then like on the other hand, what is like the hardest part emotional the no. What part of the job is hard, emotionally challenging, or boring?
So I would say it's our company, which means that it's a lot of hustling, right?
Right.
So I love actually creating the games, but going out and doing the networking and business development and
Right.
relationship building to get all of those jobs to come in is something that is less fun for me than
Right.
creating the games. And then there's just a lot of logistics, right? There's contract reviewing, figuring out budgets and how we're going to make budgets work, and just looking at, the numbers and the nitty
Yeah.
gritty. And that sort of stuff is definitely a lot less fun. And then there are times where things just aren't working and you're like, why
As
is
everything
this,
in life.
yeah, so bad? And I'm not sure how to fix it. And that is really a great thing about working with a partner is that if I've gotten to a place on a project where I'm just like, here's where it is, and I can't figure out how to
Right.
push it forward, she'll often have ideas and vice versa. So it's really nice to have that second brain to kind of push things off to when you're stuck on them.
Um, and then we're gonna get into some rapid fire questions. So, what is a day in the life like in terms of wake up time, start time, and time breaks in your
Sure.
day?
So I am a mom with two kids, so my day starts at 7 a.m. with, getting everyone breakfast, taking the dog out, getting the kids off to school, like
Right.
all of that. My work day generally starts at around 9 a.m. And then goes through like I'll generally eat lunch at my desk as I'm still working because again, it's my own company. So it's
Right.
like you kind of never stop. So work all through the day and the myriad of things that I do in my day, which I kind of already talked about. And then I generally stop at around 5. When my nanny goes home and go back on mom duty. But there's also a lot of nights where then once, I've given everyone dinner and gotten everyone settled, I'll go back and do more work at night, just kind of squeezing it in all the time.
Because it never really does stop,
It
especially when it
never
is your
stops.
own company.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like even if we've had periods where we're slower and we have one job and we're used to having four or five at a time.
Right.
And in those slow periods, it's just as busy because you're like, oh no, we don't have jobs. Let's reach out and
Yeah.
connect with all of the people and see what everyone's up to and see if we can find other jobs to come in. So it is always a lot of work, whether or not that's paid work or not.
Yeah. So what percentage of the time are you doing it by yourself versus like collaboratively?
Oh, it's interesting. In the early days of our company, it was almost like 80% collaborative. Like we would
Okay.
do everything together. But as we've gotten busier, which is a good thing, and grown, it's definitely taken on more segmentation where we do still do the concepting initially together, but that's about it. I mean, we chat with each other 8 million times a day and go over what we're
Right.
doing and how everything's progressing and everything like that. But in terms of actually like sitting down and working together, that's now probably like 15% of the time, 20% of the time.
Just because is it only two of you who do the whole company?
So the two of us do the whole company. We definitely hire in freelancers as necessary. So like neither one of us is an artist. So if we need art done or fabrication, like if we need someone to actually make something or
Right.
technology, like we definitely hire and partner with people for a lot of things. But the like just core company is just the two of us.
What do you wear? Um,
Oh, I work from home. It's great. So I can wear whatever I want. I mean, obviously, like we go
right.
into meetings and we go to conventions, and then it's more just like standard business attire. Although I will say, kind of depends on the world you're in. Like tabletop game world is a bit more casual. The themed entertainment, location-based entertainment world is a little more businessy.
And then do you notice that any parts of the year are like more busy than others?
I can't say that it is predictable. Like I would have said typically the end of the year is a little bit slower, like people have run out of their budgets, so they're not
Right.
hiring people to do things. But last year, the end of the year was insane.
Like
And the
around
like
Christmas time?
midsummer was slower. So it's kind of, I can't tell you anymore. I think COVID has thrown everything out of whack.
Mm, time is relative for sure now.
Yeah.
And then what tools or technologies do you use as part of your job?
So, I mean, personally, I just use all of the very standard, like my laptop with obviously like all of the video chat things for all of my meetings, and then the internet. And I do a lot in PowerPoint, just like cobbling together prototype stuff in PowerPoint. Ariel is the much more visual and technological one of us. So she does like if our product that we're giving someone is a deck, she makes really beautiful decks. So she does
Mm,
Photoshop. And then she's also been using a lot more Midjourney to create kind of sample prototype artwork.
right.
Where we've landed on the whole artificial intelligence question is that if it's a piece that we would have paid an artist for previously, we will still hire an artist
Okay.
and pay them for their work. But if it's something to kind of show a sample image where we would have previously just done a Google search and pulled something off the internet, we now do Midjourney art to be much more specific to the look of what we want people to understand.
Do y'all do any like online games or is it all physical?
It's almost all physical. Some of them have a digital component. So, like right now, it just opened this week at Area 15 in Las Vegas. There's a game that we have created for them where you play it on your phone in terms of your phone gives you the story and your phone tells you where to find the different elements that you need. But
Right.
then you actually go all through the space of Area 15 to
Wow.
find the physical elements that you need, and you get to interact and play with the elements that are there in the space.
That's pretty cool.
Thanks.
Um, what do people underestimate about this profession, you think?
Oh, I think people think it's all fun and games. And
Literally all
while
fun and games.
literally they're like, "Oh, you just play games all day. How fun." And it's like the some yes, I do get to play a lot of games and that is incredible and I love it, but it's a job like any other in terms of you have to be hustling and working hard all of the time. There are days where you're just sitting there going through spreadsheets or sitting there and going through
Right.
contracts and that, there are those same like boring days, there are those same hard days where things aren't working. And so as much as it is amazing that this is a career and I absolutely love it, it is not all fun and games.
And then what do you think people overestimate about this profession?
Hmm. Well, it feels like actually kind of the same answer
The
where they
same thing.
overestimate how fun it is and they underestimate how much work it is. And that all kind of is the
Right.
same feeling.
Say, yeah. And then what do you think is the fastest way to get into this profession? If like someone with a I guess there's not a traditional way to really get in this profession, but what do you think
Yeah.
the fastest way is?
I mean, I think the fastest way is to just come and start being a part of the community. It's a really lovely, open community. Like, we both come out of Hollywood. We were writers in Hollywood before, and
Wow.
Hollywood can be very closed off and like, who are you and how are you going to help my career? And I'm not going to bother talking to you if you
Right.
can't help my career. Whereas the games world and the themed entertainment world are much more open and they're like, hey, we want you to make cool stuff because we want to come and see whatever cool stuff you make. So just get involved in the community. So get a job at an escape room, get a job at a local game store, start playing all of the games. Like a lot of local game stores have meetups where you can come and get to play all the different games. There's game bars and such where you can just go and you pay like a set fee, but you get to play all of the games that they have
Right.
in their repertoire. So the more that you play and do, and then just go and, if there's like a cool interactive immersive thing happening, be like, hey, do you need help?
Right.
Like go and volunteer, go and intern. There's a lot of really lovely people here. So I think once you get in, they'll be able to kind of connect you to the world.
And then what do you think someone has to be good at doing or like doing to be good at this job?
You definitely have to like people and you have to be decent at reading them because a lot of this job is ultimately caring for people and crafting an experience for people in a way that they're going to really enjoy. And you're going to watch them play And
Hmm.
you're gonna need to be able to read like when are they having fun? When are they frustrated? When is this going well? Because at the end of the game, they'll only remember the end and they'll be like, oh,
Right.
that was fun, or oh, I don't know, I really didn't like that. But it's a whole experience through the thing with highs and
Hmm.
lows, and people tend to not remember it. So you can't just take their word on whatever they're saying. You have to be able to read them as they're
Right.
going through in that testing process. And then also just multitasking. There's so many different facets and so many different things that you have to kind of be able to hold all in your head at once. It's a really crucial skill.
And then how long do you think it takes for someone to be good at it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean,
Depends.
I think it really obviously depends on the person. I think there's people who have been doing this for a short amount of time and have created really incredible things. And then there's people who've been doing it for really like they've been around forever and it's still not good. So it really
Right.
depends on the person and their own creative.
Um, do you think a big part of it is like just how creative someone is, or is there a couple other factors that are like really important?
I think a huge part of it is your creativity. But again, I think that creativity isn't just like, boom, you got X amount of creativity and that's
Right.
all that you have in this world. Like, I think the more that you go to all sorts of different experiences, the more you get to see what else is out there, that the more you seek out inspiration, very likely the more creative you'll be. So I think creativity is a huge portion of it. But then I also think you need a lot of drive and organization and hard work. Like it can be a bit of a slog when you're like, oh, I don't know, like this part's not working or that part's not working, but
Right.
to keep going and see like how do I get this to a place where it is going to work. And so yeah, there's some like brilliant creative people. And again, it goes back to people and knowing your audience. Like
Right.
I've seen people who are very creative, but they make something that is so esoteric and so out of their head
Right.
that other people can't really enjoy it because they just don't get it because their head doesn't work in that same way. So you need to understand, how do I make this open and appealing to all different kinds of people and not just the like wildly creative artists who have,
Right.
who have brains that work in that way.
Do you think one of the hardest part of the job is like making it so broad or like kind of guessing what people want, right?
Yeah, and again, that comes back to the experience of seeing like what we think a lot about, like how can you invite people to play in a way that they're going to be comfortable with, right?
Right.
Because people are a wide spectrum. Like there are people who are so excited to
Right.
just like dive in and play and be that character. And then there are people who are like, ugh, like, please, I don't want anyone to talk to me. I don't want to have to talk to anyone. Like,
Right.
I'll just be over here. And how do you make things that have different entry points for all of those different people?
Yeah, that seems pretty difficult. Is there a typical promotional path from like the entry to a high level position?
There's not a typical one. It's honestly like, I guess, you can sort of work your way up if you are at like a larger toy company or something
Right.
like that. And in the themed entertainment world, a lot of people have worked their way up actually from being cast members in the park, which I think is a fantastic way to see like who's here and how
Right.
what is their day-to-day experience. And then when they get to those higher levels, they really understand what that guest experience is day to day because they were in the park day to day. But yeah, in terms of like our path, it's just working on larger and larger projects. But there's not necessarily a like hierarchy that we could be promoted up into.
And then if you don't mind me asking, what is the average salary for someone at your level? And it can be a super broad range too.
Yeah, and honestly, it really depends. Like some years we have a lot more projects, and some years we have a
Right.
lot less projects. But I would say, kind of between like 80 and 200K a year. So it
Wow.
varies.
That's not a bad range. Um,
if you're
And
working real hard like, to get a ton
right,
of projects in.
right. And then when people in your field move on, what kind of work do they often go into? Or can they just go into anything?
Yeah, I think probably going into anything that's adjacent to the field. So like creative directing at agencies, stuff like that. Or working in the games world in other facets. So like marketing and
Right.
inventor relations and everything like that. But I think a lot of people who once they get into the game design world, this is sort of where they want to stay.
And then what books, resources, programs, certificates would you recommend for someone trying to get into this profession? And then are there any that you would not recommend?
So again, the biggest thing that I recommend is to play all of the games, like
Right.
everything you can get your hands on, tabletop games, live experiences, whatever you can find in your area, and then if possible, travel. Like we literally take business trips to go and see different experiences because we hear that they're new and different and
Wow.
unique, and we want that inspiration. So I think the biggest thing that you can do is play and experience. There's books that are useful, like puzzle crafting actually kind of talks about like making puzzles. Um, but it's really just a question of like play everything.
Where's the coolest place you've traveled to go like see a immersive
Uh,
experience or game?
Amsterdam, the
Oh,
Netherlands,
wow.
was incredible. We actually were lucky enough to be brought there for a conference called Up the Game, where we were speaking on like game design and playtesting. But the experiences in the Netherlands were so great and so immersive, like where you literally start your game in a parking garage and you have to like
Wow.
go to the fifth floor and find this car and like break in, there's stuff there. Then you had like it
That's
was
pretty
a real world, like so fun.
cool. And what would you tell your younger self who is just getting started in this position?
That this is a real job and you can actually do it. I remember when when our first game was kind of exploding and we were transitioning from writers to being game designers, and it really felt like I would say to people like, "Oh, I'm a game designer." Like it just felt like a made up career because I never even thought that yes, of course there's people who come up with these games that you've grown up playing your entire life. So I think it would just be that, like, yes, this is very real and you can absolutely make this a thing.
And then where can people connect with you if they're interested in learning more?
So we have a website, www.wildoptimists.com, and there's plural optimists because there's two of us. And then we're probably most active on social on Instagram. That's at the Wild Optimists, where you can see both the things that we've made and are promoting, but then we also go and play a lot of immersive, interesting things and we post about them. So it's a good way, at least if you're in LA, to see all the cool, fun things that are happening. We're on Facebook.com/Wild Optimists, and then we're on X now, which like we're hardly ever on there, but we do have a handle which is at Escape Room in Box. So that's us.
Well, awesome. Miss Juliana, thank you so much for joining us today on the Job Dictionary podcast. Thank you.
You just got one episode closer to learning about the world of jobs out there. To explore the rest of our career categories and find your best fit, go to jobdictionary.com to sign up for the beta users waitlist. Then subscribe here to find the next episodes coming out this week. And as always, drop us a comment, review, or message to let us know how we can better attune our episodes to your specific needs. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Threads, Pinterest, and wherever else you're on socials to go get our short, snappy preview reels that expose you to new job options every day. Because here at Job Dictionary, we believe your big aha moment can be just one scroll away. Go check it out and get out there. Cheers!